President Nana Addo Akufo-Addo has used his maiden State of the Nation address to assure Ghanaians that he is committed to fixing the country's problems rather than complain about what is broken. Addressing the nation on the floor of Parliament, he set out his vision for the country, hinting there may be the need to implement tough but prudent and innovative policies to rescue the economy.
We will reduce significantly the fiscal deficit this year. Mr. Speaker, Ghana's economic growth has also declined dramatically. Notwithstanding the record amount of financial resources at the disposal of the previous government, Ghana's GDP growth in 2016, including oil, is estimated at 3.6%. This is the lowest GDP growth in about 23 years. Mr. Speaker, at the beginning of March, the Minister for Finance will come to this House to lay out in the national budget the details of our economic policy and the clear roadmap that we have laid out for taking the country out of its current predicament and onto a sustainable path of recovery, jobs creation and prosperity.
A $125 million Canadian dollar grant will support a plan for food and jobs initiative, which is expected to transform the agriculture sector and enhance food security. Nana Akufo-Addo says the plan is to strengthen the agriculture value chain with focus on food processing.
This campaign will be anchored on the pillars that will transform agriculture: the provision of improved seeds, the supply of fertilizers, the provision of dedicated extension services, a marketing strategy, and the use of e-agriculture. To initiate the campaign, the district assemblies will be tasked to identify and register progressive farmers in each of the 216 districts. For too long, our farmers have been left to cope by themselves without the necessary support from government. For too long, our farmers have been left to the mercy of the vagaries of the weather. We have decided to embark on a program to provide water to enable all-year farming. We're calling it the One Village, One Dam policy. Food processing has been the first steps towards industrialization in virtually every country, and it is time for us to take it seriously. Not only will it serve to cut down on the wastage of crops during the high season, it will provide more jobs and expand farming business.
The president also described the issue of joblessness as debilitating, stressing that massive industrialization will resolve the challenge.
The key elements of this program are restoration and maintenance of a stable macroeconomy, monetary and fiscal measures which will lead to a reduction in interest rates and a reduction in the tax burden on enterprises, provision of reliable, affordable power to enterprises and homes, setting up of a stimulus package to support existing Ghanaian industries and improve their competitiveness, implementation of the initiative through public-private partnerships to establish at least one industrial enterprise in each of the 216 districts in the one district, one factory policy. Development of strategic anchor initiatives as new pillars of growth for the Ghanaian economy, including the establishment of petrochemical industries, an iron and steel industry, an integrated aluminum industry, the expansion of the domestic production of pharmaceuticals, the establishment of a vehicle assembly and automatic industry. We are confident, Mr. Speaker, that through these interventions, significant job opportunities will be open to Ghanaians across the country.
On education, President Akufo-Addo says his administration is eager to ensure every child in Ghana who qualifies for secondary education enjoys it as a right, and reiterated his commitment to make good his campaign promise to make senior high school education free.
Education holds the key to the prosperous and happy Ghana we all want and deserve. Luckily, there's consensus amongst us on the need to provide quality education to all of Ghana's children. If I'm in a hurry, I'm in a hurry to ensure that every child born in this country attends school from kindergarten to senior high school. In other words, that is the basic education that each child is required to receive. We intend to reform the basic school curricula with emphasis on literacy, numeracy, and creative skills. And just in case there's anyone left in this country who has not heard yet, free SHS starts with the 2017-2018 entrance into the public SHS.
The president also assured trainees at the various colleges of education the allowances will be reinstated as promised. But the opposition has reacted fiercely to some of the president's remarks and claims, suggesting he is preparing the ground to renege on his campaign promises. Former Agriculture Minister Fifi Kwete is questioning the president's job creation initiative through agriculture, suggesting it's unlikely to generate jobs on the scale needed to make an impact.
When you are looking at creation of jobs globally, agriculture is not the way to look. If you are looking at creation of jobs, you're talking much more about manufacturing, about industry. Agriculture, by its very nature, as it becomes more efficient, you tend to shed a lot of manpower and move much more into capitalization. You move much more into capital-intensive agriculture all over the world. Go to South Africa, go to India, go to America, everywhere you go. So you're looking at real transformation in terms of job. Exactly is not the way to go. But I can understand agriculture in terms of value addition that actually will bring many more people on the. A lot of our young people are not interested in the kind of very labor-intensive agriculture. No, they are interested, for example, in agriculture where you don't really employ too many people. For example, you have what you call greenhouses. That really doesn't employ a lot of people, but much more effective.
The Minister of Agriculture, Dr. Uswe Friakoto, however, disagrees, stressing that 750,000 jobs will be created through the campaign.
The Planting for Food and Jobs is a pilot scheme involving 200,000 farmers this coming 2 months when the program starts. It's going to cost 560 million Ghana cedis.
You already have 125 million.
Yeah,
from the Canadian government.
No. The Canadian facility is for 5 years.
Okay.
I'm talking about just this year.
Okay, I see.
It's going to cost about 125 million US dollars. 560 million. It's going to generate income for these farmers of 1.3 billion and creating 750,000 jobs. So it doesn't necessarily mean that because it's agriculture and it's not growing that you share jobs. It creates jobs. There's an opportunity to create on-farm jobs.
Now, minority MPs have meanwhile expressed disquiet over some specific issues they believed should have necessarily come up in the President's State of the Nation address but were absent. They argue the President deliberately left out those specifics because he did not want to credit the Mahama administration. The minority MPs also took issue with a gloomy assessment of the economy by the President, especially because that wasn't the full picture, according to them. Here's a news desk report.
Of particular concern to the minority MPs was the President saying the economy was in a bad way. The President told the audience in the Chamber of Parliament, including former President Rawlings and Kufuor, that he was in a hurry to put the economy back on track.
As compared to a target of 5.3% under the IMF program, the fiscal deficit for 2016 was 9% of GDP on a cash basis and 10.2% of GDP on a commitment basis. That is, on the basis of expenditures undertaken but not yet paid for. It should be recalled that at the time Ghana entered into the IMF program to restore fiscal discipline, the fiscal deficit was 10.2% of GDP. It is very clear, therefore, that the objectives set out in the program have not been achieved. Mr. Speaker, the increasing fiscal deficits was financed were financed by increased borrowing. As of the beginning of 2009, Ghana's total debt stock was 9.5 billion cedis. By the end of 2016, the debt stock has ballooned to 122 billion cedis.
For the minority MPs, the president sought to run down the achievements of the previous government.
Inflation is declining steadily. He failed to mention it. Not too long ago, inflation was a major political talk from the MPP. Why is it missing today? Because he knows he's doing well, he doesn't want to give credit to the NDC. Today, as we speak, the T-bill rate is declining steadily and sharply because of pragmatic debt management policies we put in place at the Ministry of Finance. Why was he silent about it? I am disappointed, and I can see clearly this is a clear attempt by the NPP administration to run away from their campaign promises of reducing taxes.
Everybody in this country knows that President Mahama spent time on building infrastructure. He may not have attended to everything, but he built the infrastructure, he built the roads, he built the hospitals, he turned our clinics into major hospitals, in healthcare service, in water supplies, in road construction, in schools. No, he did something.
The omission about Bimbila, he touched on Gambia and how we are helping, our troops are helping to bring normalcy to the Gambia. But how about Bimbila? We have had scores of our citizens, our brothers and sisters have died. People have lost properties. People have had to relocate. They have, large villages have been deserted, and the president doesn't even spare a thought about Bimbila.
They made it clear they will be seeking an opportunity to make their views known on the President's State of the Nation address in their own time.
Watching Joy News Prime, and still to come on the President's State of the Nation address, the President indicated government is conducting a review of power purchase agreements believed to be responsible for the relatively high electricity tariffs, adding some may be abrogated altogether.
Prioritize, renegotiate, defer or cancel outright if necessary.
We'll be back with all that and more. Stay tuned. Well, still on the President's State of the Nation address, President Akufo-Addo has announced his administration is conducting a review of all existing power purchase agreements, adding the government will not rule out an outright cancellation of those found not to be in the best interest of the country. The President in the State of the Nation address described as unsatisfactory the current state of the energy sector, which he says is saddled with huge debts.
We produce power from Akosombo at 3 US cents per kilowatt hour. The marginal price for businesses is an effective 42 cents, more than 10 times the average tariff in West Africa. This makes it very difficult to start or run a business here and be competitive. The cost of energy destroys businesses large and small. It is the bane of the vulcanizer, the tailor, the dressmaker and the hairdresser, the carpenter and the wayside fitting mechanic. It destroys jobs. It compounds poverty. The current state of the energy situation in our country is unsatisfactory. The problems are enormous, but Mr. Speaker, we must and we will confront them. I am proposing a number of policy interventions. We will improve on transparency in tariff setting and introduce a new tariff policy that will reclassify consumer categories in order to protect lifeline and strategic industrial consumers. We will also reduce significantly some of the levies and taxes on the tariffs.
So that was the President rather lamenting the relatively high electricity tariffs in Ghana compared to the African average and its implications for businesses and indicates the government will improve transparency in tire setting with lifeline and strategic industries in mind. But he also talked about the review of the power purchase agreement. Let's hear him on that.
As of the end of 2016, the Electricity Company of Ghana, ECG, had signed 43 power purchase agreements, whilst a further 23 were under discussion. Government is conducting a review of all the power agreements entered into by the previous government in order to prioritize, renegotiate, defer or cancel outright if necessary in the national interest. Overall, we began to develop a national electricity master plan, which will also explore the benefits of listing VRA and GRIDCO on the stock exchange.
Now, one worrying feature that characterized the NPP's victory in the 2016 election was, and to some extent, has been the violent attacks on members of the opposition NDC and the forceful seizures and takeovers of some state installations and properties. There were several calls by the public and civil society organizations for the president to make a public pronouncement calling his party faithful to order. Well, that call eventually came when the president delivered his first State of the Nation address on Tuesday, except the opposition NDC is not impressed. Latif Idris has more.
The attacks and vandalism began on December 9, shortly after the chairperson of the Electoral Commission declared the then candidate Akufo-Addo as winner of the December 7 presidential elections, and by extension, president-elect. Across the regions, supporters of the MPP went on rampage, ejecting people perceived to be NDC sympathizers from their official bungalows. But for the timely intervention of the police, the so-called invincible forces in Accra attempted to take over the passport office. Several weeks after those incidents, which were justified by some leading members of the MPP, the president finally condemned those attacks.
Certain incidents occurred during the transition period that are matters of concern to me and should be to every Ghanaian, as they marred an otherwise dignified and successful transition. Wrongdoing has no political color, and I do not subscribe to the lawlessness of political party supporters simply because their party has been elected into office. Mr. Speaker, when those incidents began, I instructed the then Inspector General of Police, John Kudalo, to apply the law, irrespective of political affiliation, to all lawbreakers.
The General Secretary of the NDC, however, believes the condemnation has come rather too late.
I don't believe in what he's saying, the sincerity of what he's saying, honestly, because he was still in town when these things were happening, and we were calling him that you should strike when the iron is hot. Now everything has died down, so what is the purpose of condemning it? It has happened already. Those who have to suffer have suffered. You are now saying that there should be a truce on your terms, so that next time when somebody takes over, it shouldn't happen. Is that what he wants us to believe? This statement, if he had made it publicly at that time, I'm sure that there are things that we could have avoided.
Though it may be late, according to the NDC scribe, the president also indicated in his address that the IGP was asked to take certain actions, and so hopefully the victims of those attacks may just get justice, however delayed.
Well, in other news, Gender Minister Otiku Efiseh-Jabba is demanding justice for an alleged female thief seen in a video being assaulted and subjected to abuse in Kumasi. Madam Otiku-Jabba has described the incident as a case of violence against women which should not be taken lightly, and is therefore charging the police to bring the perpetrators to book.
We spoke to the district command, the regional commander of Kumasi. We've also asked the social welfare department in Kumasi to go and find her. Apparently, she went to the police to report that she had been assaulted. Yeah. She was given a hospital form, and they haven't seen her yet. And so we are going to work with the police. This is not something that we can do alone. To be able to find her and see if she's okay, and then let the rest of the process in terms of the due law take its place. Okay. In everything that we do, we must work with others and find out what actually happened to her. Then we can begin to address the issues. So we are working to find her and find out what is happening. Okay. But importantly, we must respect each other's rights and the dignity of women. And we cannot leave anybody out, especially women.
And the video of the assault, which was widely circulated on social media, the unidentified female is seen being stripped by the mob. The last known sighting of the woman was at the police station, where she was sent by an onlooker and giving a police report form to go to the hospital. Ashanti regional correspondent Erastus Asare Donko has been following up on this story, and on Monday managed to meet up with some of the people who took part in the mob action at KJT and the Ashanti regional capital. He's not giving up yet on tracing the victim, and joins us with what else he's been able to find. Good evening to you, Erastus. What's the latest on this young lady?
Well, what we do know for a fact is that the police are currently clueless as to where the lady is. And what we also do know that she's Nigerian, between the, I think in his early 30s. And so I have been linking up with some Nigerian friends. We've also been checking the various joints where we find these Nigerians operating to try and locate her. I've also sent word on social media, certain platforms, Nigerian platforms, trying to get any information as to where she is. The police themselves do not know where she is. They are now trying to track her. And so that is what we are currently doing. We have some institutions like Shraj coming in and expressing interest and also starting their own investigations. Some of their officials have been speaking to me, and we are teaming up. We have calls from some other journalists who are equally disturbed. So we are trying to trace her whereabouts.
All right, so you've been able to do all this all by yourself. You managed to find out that she's actually a Nigerian or of a Nigerian descent. Is this information that's also available to the police, or they're clueless about all that you've been able to find out?
We told the police yesterday what we have. In
so
fact,
you got the information and you passed it on to the police?
Exactly. Yesterday, after our investigations, we met the police team on our way to the Central Police Headquarters, and they requested that we also furnish them with what we found so far. So we've given them what we found so far, including going around with them to the areas that she was paraded, going to the extent of finding out where the incident itself occurred in front of Central Market. And so we have given that information to the police. They are also doing their checks. We are also doing our checks, and we'll cross-check information as to what we get in the coming days.
All right, so you seem to be, finding out so much more. Is the police also, what is it that the police has also been finding out, or it's just you?
Well, when we met them, there wasn't that inclination that they do have any information. And you could get the indication that, in fact, when the lady reported to the police station, there was no apparent reason to follow her, do some checks, get even her background, get some information, write a statement, get a statement from the taxi driver who brought her, one Apple who works close to PZ, Adum. He was not contacted, his details were not taken, so they did not have anything to work with at that particular moment. It is now that we are all looking for, and we are furnishing them with what we have. They are also doing their own checks on the ground. In fact, what we are learning, Israel, disturbing as it is, This is a ritual which occurs within that particular area. About 6 ladies have suffered the same fate within the last 1 year. So if you steal around Central Market and the 18 line, if you're a woman, you are stripped naked. Sometimes they apply pepper to your private parts and all that, according to the ladies there. And it's not something that they regret. It's something the women there endorse. And in fact, this video you are looking at right now was shot, according to my investigations, was shot by a woman. And it tells you what kind of people we have become as a nation.
All right, Erastus. Now, the other thing you found out yesterday you were able to encounter the people who took part in this mob action. Is the police, or do you get the impression that the police is seeking to bring these people in at all to question them?
Yesterday, I got the indication from the police we were working with. In fact, at a point when we were working with the police along certain streets at Kejitia, the comments that were coming up, in fact, the policemen themselves were overwhelmed, and the endorsements that were coming in favor of this barbaric act, they themselves were worried. And they told me they could not make any arrests at that particular moment, but there are guys who, on video, we brought in there, have said that they were part of the stripping of this lady, and they do not regret it. I think in the coming days, some direction will be made towards arrest.
All right, thank you very much, Rasha Cesare Donko, bringing us up to speed on the case of this young female who was assaulted in the Central Business District of Kumasi. You're watching Joy News Prime. When we come back, we're bringing you business, and business is going to be focusing a lot more on what the president has had to say on the economy and business. Please stay tuned. We'll be back in a bit. Welcome back to Joy News Prime. Residents in and around Kenyasi in the Sutifi North District of the Branhafu region are expressing disgust at their local authorities for doing nothing about a recent water pollution claim in a research finding. The residents said the district assembly should have acted swiftly in holding back the provision of potable water in the areas mentioned in the research report until the right thing is done. Nesta Kafua Juma has been interacting with the residents and filed the following report.
Few weeks ago, Wacom launched 2 research reports conducted by the University of Cape Coast in collaboration with the Water Research Institute of CSIR and funded by the Ford Foundation. The reports indicated that some water bodies in the Newmont Ahafo Mine concession have been polluted with arsenic and other heavy metals through the activities of mining companies. Results of the research findings also revealed the socio-economic effects of Newmont Ahafo Mine's operation on women have been largely negative. Kennedy Edueje, chairman of Oman Butentin, an environmental advocacy group in Kenyasi No. 1, and others like him believe the stakeholders should have acted on the report by now.
Newmont Jumeku Waha Utu Gudiano and Pemebrina and Yanatrin Como say a Quayan Namaso.
We are currently facing environmental issues with regards to Newmont's mining activities in the area. We've had discussions with them as to the dangers the activities pose to our health. We were expecting to have an environmental monitoring team to check whether or not the cyanide being used is leaked into the earth, but it hasn't yielded any results. Wacom's research lately indicates that our drinking water is poisoned with cyanide. We therefore appeal to governments to resolve this issue.
And other NGOs, environmental institutions, say
Meanwhile, people living in the community of Doma Kantinka near Newmont Ahafo Mine are appealing to the mining company to relocate them. At the time of our visit to the community, an argument had ensued between the residents and workers of Newmont over the operations of an excavator belonging to the mining firm.
Newmont ba yamba temasino akwanya odi afaso no enye if say mining ba umema anase umpatema
We are not happy with the works of Newmont as the activities have affected our water bodies. Lately, they have been stealing our firewood. Due to the activities, all our roads have been blocked. We have spoken to our leaders, but it hasn't yielded any results.
Was who see Dama ye, and see I am say, and send I sent in Canon so by an
I was here before the establishment of Newmont Ghana. The activities have destroyed our source of drinking water. They are really disturbing us with their mining activities. We want them to build our houses for us. My eyesight is nearly ruined as a result of the dust. We appeal to authorities to help restore our buildings.
Communications manager of Newmont Ahafomine, Agbeko Kwame Azuma, in a telephone interview said the company has already compensated rightful land and property owners in their concession. However, stated Newmont Ahafomine is still committed to using dialogue to resolve all issues with aggrieved individuals in the area. Nestor Kafui, Ajoma's report.
Now, schools in the country have often been accused of handicapping children by failing to use local languages as a medium of instruction. But a lecturer at the Institute of African Studies at the University of Ghana, Professor Esi Sutherland Adi, believes parents are also complicit in the neglect of the mother tongue. As the world marks International Mother Tongue Day, the renowned educationist says the dwindling appreciation for local languages is as a result of the overly heavy concentration on the English language. She spoke with Hanodame.
This is a typical Ghana class where we are being taught Game Ashikwe. That's the origins of some cities in the capital. And the language being used is Ga. How well do these students communicate using the Ga language?
I communicate with my friends in English language when I'm in school.
How about home? What language do you speak?
I do speak Chi.
So your turn.
So
how about you two? How many local languages can you speak?
Normally, I can speak to Chui and Gan, but the one I like most is Gan.
How about home? Do you communicate with a local language or with English?
In the house with English because my sister doesn't understand Gan or Chui.
I can speak two.
Which one?
Chui and Gan.
What happens to the Ever, the Agbani, the Nzema? All of you, none of you are able to speak that. What happens to that?
That one, I'm not confident in that one, so I can't speak.
You're not confident, but have you tried?
No, I've not tried before. Yes, please.
So you're very fluent in Ga and Chi?
Yes, please.
I'm going to play the drums for break time. Say it in Ga.
Iacha mele keha break.
Break, no. Say it in Ga. How easy is it for these teachers who teach students using the local language?
Most of them are non-natives of Ghana. They don't speak Ghana in the house. So it's like they only concentrate on what we teach in the class. After the lesson, they don't even speak the language again. Wow. So that is the difficulty we are having.
So it means when you come back for the next period, they've forgotten what you studied.
Sometimes you have to go over the whole topic again. Wow. It's very difficult. That is our mother tongue. So you should try and speak it with the children in the house.
According to Professor Sutherland Ade, this is the way to go, teaching children the local language right at the basics.
We've had a love-hate relationship with the national language policy in education. And that is what has scared a lot of parents because we're not able to put our foot down and say this is what we're doing. And the pressure comes from elite parents in urban areas.
Perhaps the educational policy on the usage of local language as a medium of instruction will have to be looked at seriously again to ensure that our children do not lose their heritage in terms of language. For joining us, my name is Hannah Adami.
Now to the rest of our stories. The Kintampo waterfalls attracts many tourists from across the world, but it is gradually losing its shine due to mounting refuse. The lack of proper waste management system at the site compels visitors to litter indiscriminately. Joy News' Mahmoud Mohamed Nuruddin visited the falls and filed this report.
Many families and school children love to come out here, especially on weekends. Students in particular find it a childhood dream to admire a natural resource they may have heard or read about in books. The natural environment gives a breezy feeling as visitors scramble for the splashing water from the rocks above. Martin and his team from Germany are also here to have a feel of the beauty of nature.
It's a very nice place to be, and I like it. I like it so much. It's a spiritual place, I think. And we came from Accra to Kumasi, to Kintampo, and here. And we love Ghana at the moment.
Kintampo waterfalls, known as Sanders Falls in the colonial era, generates on average 300 Ghana cedis daily in revenue. This means it generates just about enough to maintain itself and attract more visits. However, filth seems to have marred the serenity of the waterfalls.
Of course, what we see first is all the trash. You know, there's lots of trash here. You know, and I can't understand why can people come to a place like this. They're beautiful. People who like nature, who worship nature, and just throw their stuff away everywhere. You know, and I think I don't know. Maybe when people come, maybe you should make some kind of instruction to them how they should treat nature, not only here but in general.
Hundreds troop here, especially during festive seasons, but the visitors lament the rock above from which the water flows are a threat to human lives. There is a need for government to get the stones out of the water to make it conducive for tourists to swim in it. This will, to a large extent, attract more tourists to the site. Authorities need to fix this problem to uphold the beauty of this tourist attraction in the Brong-Ahafo region. Mahmoud Mohamed Nuruddin's report for Joy News.
All right, so before we bring you entertainment, I'm going to be taking you through some of the highlights of the president's speech. It's captured in some quotable quotes and for the State of the Nation address. So we have this one, a national campaign, Planting for Food and Jobs, will be launched. $125 million Canadian dollars has been secured for the campaign. That's one of the quotable quotes coming out of the President's State of the Nation address. And there's one on affirmative action. The president says, we will pass affirmative action bill. And then unavailability of jobs is a huge problem in our country. Our youth want jobs, but there are none. The one district, one factory policy will address that challenge. Then the president also talked about the post-election violence, and here is a quote from that. Incidents during transition marred the beauty of the peaceful elections. I condemn all acts from both party members. And he went on to say that he was hoping that sometime to come, the two leading parties would work towards ridding the country of all post-election violence. Then he also talked about the fiscal debt and says Ghana's debt stock now stands at 74%, a whopping 74% of GDP, translated it to about 120 million, or $120 billion rather. And then Ghana's GDP, 120 billion cedis, sorry. Ghana's GDP growth in 2016 is estimated at 3.6%. This is the lowest GDP growth in about 23 years. Well, we'll be fact-checking all of that subsequently and make that available to you. And then, I was not elected by the overwhelming majority of Ghanaian people to complain. This seems to be the main quote that's coming out of the President's State of the Nation address. I was elected to get things done. I was elected to fix what is broken. It seems to be one of the popular ones. Then he also talked about the national identification policy. He says we'll complete national identification policy this year. Now, this is an emphatic statement. The first time we're hearing the president really speak to the fact that there's a timeline on this and that it will be completed this year. That's 2017. We'll be looking out for that. And then he also talked about the country's contribution to peacekeeping initiatives. Says $13 million arreared all the peacekeepers have been cleared by my government. Contingents in the Gambia have been paid all allowances in full. And I recall when he got to this particular quote, he actually repeated it. He wanted that point to be made more emphatically. And then there were challenges with total revenue. It says the total revenue target for our country was 37.9 billion cedis, 22.7% of GDP. But the actual revenue gain came in at 33.2 billion. That's 19.9% of GDP. And then after 8 years of NDC, there is no fiscal space. The country now has to borrow for everything. And then that controversial bit about some monies, some expenditure not being accounted for, the president talked about it. He says it appears 7 billion cedis of arrears and outstanding payments circumvented the very public finance management system that was put in place to prevent such occurrences. These expenditures are currently being audited. And then the main plank of the MPP's campaign all through, unavailability of jobs is a huge problem in our country. Our youth want jobs, but there are none. The one district, one factory policy will address that challenge. There was also talk about the, private sector involvement, participation in the electricity company of Ghana. It says we need further dialogue on the privatization of ECG. So initially, there was the position taken by the senior minister that the compact was going to be reviewed. But it turns out that the president is stepping down on that rhetoric, suggesting that there will be dialogue, no more a review. And then 92% of Ghana's total debt stock was accumulated in the last 8 years. And this is a statement that the NDC, opposition NDC, has a serious problem with. They think the president is not being exactly truthful about it. Right, those are some of the highlights of the main highlights of the President's State of the Nation address.